At 60, Sarah Jessica Parker is more than just an actress. She is a symbol of New York itself. Her name doesn't just shine on red carpets, it rings through the streets of a city that lifted her up, knocked her down, and watched her get back up. Again, to the world, she is Carrie Bradshaw. But behind that famous character is a woman who has carried problems far heavier than a fancy purse. Born on March 25, 1965 in Nelsonville, Ohio, a working-class town more used to hard times than fame, Sarah's early life was filled with struggle. Her childhood wasn't filled with chances, but with trying to survive cold rooms, used clothes, and wondering if the electricity bills would get paid. She once said, "There were times we didn't know if the lights would come back on." It wasn't drama, it was just the truth. Her parents split up when she was just 3. Her father disappeared from her life, and her mother Barbara tried to keep everything together. When Barbara married again to a nice man named Paul Forst, the house grew to 8 kids. The walls didn't get bigger, they felt too small. Privacy disappeared. Meals were stretched to feed too many people. While other kids played outside, Sarah chased survival and tryouts for acting. At 8, she was already dancing. At 9, she was learning, singing, and acting. And by 11, she was going to casting rooms, not for fun, but to help pay for food. Each show wasn't a dream, it was a way to survive. And every stage light wasn't just a spotlight, it was proof she could rise above what the world expected of a girl born with almost nothing. By the time she was 13, starring in Annie on Broadway, she wasn't just acting, she was surviving quietly, powerfully, beautifully. At 14, Sarah Jessica Parker wasn't dreaming of fame. She was simply trying to survive in New York City. She lived away from her family for long periods, staying on borrowed couches and crowded apartments, carrying schoolbooks and audition scripts in the same worn-out bag. New York looked amazing from far away, but up close it was cold, uncaring, and harsh. She studied at the professional children's school, doing homework on subway rides and writing notes under dark backstage lights. Her meals were scraps. Half a sandwich here, a beat-up apple there. She never told her mother how often she skipped meals just to save a few dollars. At night, she sometimes wore her coat to bed because the heat wouldn't work. Tryouts weren't hopeful. They were brutal. Girls showed up polished and pampered. Sarah stood in the same line, holding worn-out sheet music with her mother's careful comments. With her mother's careful ironing, trying to make up for not having expensive clothes. "You're not tall enough, not pretty enough," casting agents told her. Rejection became something she heard every day. Yet she kept showing up. Between 14 and 16, she did small TV jobs and traveling theater shows. No red carpets, no limos, just long bus rides, shared motel rooms, and trying to memorize lines while being the grown-up no teenager should have to be. At 17, a big moment came. She landed the role of Patty Green in Square Pegs. For the first time, the world saw her not as the girl who keeps trying, but as someone who belonged. The audience loved her. By 19, she'd landed roles in Footloose and Firstborn, proving she could do comedy, heart, and drama all at once. She wasn't just surviving anymore, she was arriving in 1998. At 33 years old, she stepped into the role that would define her forever, Carrie Bradshaw. Sex and the City wasn't just a show, it was a revolution. Over 6 seasons, Sarah became the voice of a whole generation of women searching for love, identity, and power in a world that didn't always offer room for all three. But while Carrie walked through New York in heels and designer dresses, Sarah's reality was far less glamorous. 14 to 16-hour workdays wore her down. Her feet got blisters from hundreds of outfit changes. She once admitted that some nights she wondered if anyone noticed how close to empty she really was. Awards came pouring in: an Emmy, for Golden Globes, and a paycheck that climbed to over $3 million per episode. Yet beneath the glitter was a woman still haunted by the little girl who once lived in a house without power. The one who knew exactly how much everything cost because surviving demanded it. The tabloids were mean. They made fun of her appearance, zoomed in on her nose, her hair, her aging skin. They praised her fashion while tearing down her face. Every camera flash carried both love and cruelty. She felt it all, but rarely said a word. Then came the movies Sex and the City 2008 and its sequel in 2010. Together, they made over $700 million. Sarah's earnings jumped past $250 million. She became one of the highest-paid actresses in the world. But she also felt a strange split growing inside. Fans loved Carrie, but often forgot Sarah. While the world celebrated Carrie and Samantha's unbreakable bond, the real-life connection between Sarah Jessica Parker and Kim Cattrall was quietly falling apart. For years, their on-screen friendship felt like gospel, glamorous, loyal, raw. But behind the scenes, a different story was happening. As Sex and the City took off, Sarah became the face of the show, eventually an executive producer. Her salary showed that. Kim, equally brilliant as Samantha Jones, believed all four actresses should be treated as equals. Hollywood disagreed, and so did the paychecks. Over time, anger built up in small looks and quiet distance. Then came 2018. Kim's brother died suddenly. Sarah, having lost people herself, reached out with sympathy, but Kim, in deep grief, responded with a message that went viral on social media. "You are not my friend. You are a hypocrite." It was raw, public, final. Sarah didn't fire back. She simply said, "I am heartbroken." That night, she placed her phone face down and stared out into the blur. The silence around her was loaded with grace, with sadness, with a decision not to add fuel to a fire the world already wanted to burn. She chose dignity over drama. Before there was Carrie, before the millions, before the spotlight. There was Robert Downey Jr. It was 1984. Sarah was just 19 when she met. The magnetic, unpredictable boy who would change her life. What began as a spark became a wildfire. They were young, hungry, broke, but wildly in love. For a time, love felt like the only thing they owned. But darkness crept in. Robert's rising fame brought chaos and drug abuse. Sarah tried to hold it all together. "I thought I was holding him together," she would say later. By 1987, the cracks had turned into huge breaks. Sarah cried quietly in kitchens, hid pain behind smiles, and kept showing up to work while her world quietly fell apart. She loved him desperately, but love wasn't enough. In 1991, after 7 years, she left. "I don't regret loving him. I regret thinking I could save him." It took 6 years after Robert for Sarah's heart to feel steady again. When love arrived again, it was quiet, almost shy. Matthew Broderick wasn't chaos, he was calm. They met through the Naked Angels Theater Company in the early 90s. He simply showed up again and again, steady, thoughtful, kind. They married in 1997, a small ceremony with just 100 guests. But even soft marriages face hard times. When Sex and the City exploded, Sarah was working 14-hour days. They passed each other like ships in the night. Tabloid rumors of cheating whispered around them. Sarah later said quietly, "What hurt wasn't the headline. It was the fear that maybe he thought I didn't see him anymore." They didn't break. They leaned in. In 2002, their son James Wilkie was born. Then in 2009, their twin daughters, Marion and Tabitha, arrived through surrogacy. Through every hard year, Matthew stayed the same. The man who made her tea at dawn, who whispered, "We know who we are. Let them talk." As Sarah Jessica Parker built her legacy brick by brick, she did so with the quiet strength of her stepfather. Paul Forst. He wasn't a man of fame or headlines, but to Sarah, he was everything. He entered her life when she was just 3 after her parents' marriage ended. Paul worked multiple jobs to keep their mixed family of 8 alive. He kept the house warm when the bills couldn't. He drove her to auditions when Barbara was working overtime. He tied her shoelaces before plays. He didn't teach her how to be famous. He taught her how to stand. In 2022, when Paul passed after a brief illness, Sarah's world shifted. The final days were quiet. Sarah sat at his bedside, holding his shaking hand. When his hand loosened in hers, the world simply went quiet. Paul raised her with presence, with loyalty, with the rock-solid belief that she mattered. In fall 2021, as Sarah prepared to revisit Carrie Bradshaw and just like that, life dealt her another crushing blow. Willie Garson, Stanford Blatch too. The World But Family tour passed away after a brave battle with pancreatic cancer. He hadn't told many, not even Sarah. She noticed the winces, the shaking hands, the tired smile. But every time she asked, he brushed it off. Just days later, he was gone. No warning, no goodbye. Sarah didn't just lose a friend, she lost one of the few people who had walked beside her through every part of her life. She cried at his funeral deeply, without holding back, at 60. Her life is measured not by trophies, but by the love she's chosen to protect her children, her marriage, her strength. Her net worth may be over $200 million. But her greatest wealth lives in the quiet moments. She gives generously, supports children's hospitals and arts programs because she knows exactly what it means to grow up without light. Sarah Jessica Parker didn't just become famous. She survived. She endured. She built a life from grit and grief. She is not just a star. She is a survivor with style, a mother with memory.